When I refused to give my newborn daughter to my childless sister, my parents called me selfish and kicked me out of the house. 11 years later, they showed up demanding to meet their granddaughter, but when they saw who was standing beside her, their smiles vanished. The doorbell rang twice before I looked through the side window. My father was on the porch. I knew that from the cough. One dry cough, then a small throat clearing, same as every porch of my childhood. My mother was standing 3 feet from my door holding a pie dish. She was smiling. She had not been smiling 11 years ago when she opened her own front door and told me to leave. "We're just here to meet our granddaughter." Loud enough for the neighbors. That was the point. Aunt Corinne stood on the second step with a gift bag, tissue paper folded to a point, nodding along to my mother's back like a woman rehearsing a hymn she wasn't sure of. Mrs. Halberg was 3 houses down watering a plant that did not need water. The Peterson boy had his phone out. He was not being subtle. My street had watched a lot of Sunday afternoons over the years. It had never watched anything like this. I opened the door 6 inches. No more. I want you to notice what I did not do. I did not step outside. I did not invite them in. I did not wipe my hands on my apron the way a woman does when she is caught off guard on a Sunday afternoon. I was not caught off guard. On the side table next to my porch swing, under a folded blue dish towel, was a dove gray fabric court binder. Inside that binder was a document my mother had signed with my name 11 years ago. She had never known it was still on this earth. Welcome back to Calm Life Stories. I'm Nora Whitfield, 33. I work as a family court paralegal at the county courthouse 4 blocks from my house in Coldwater Bend, Iowa. My grandmother Frances handed me that binder an hour before my parents rang my doorbell. She said 2 sentences. She kept everything. I knew this day was coming. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Then hit subscribe, because this is the kind of story that finds the people who need to hear it, and I want you to be one of them. 11 years my parents had spent telling one version of what happened to me. 11 years of a story that painted me as the villain and my sister as the heartbroken saint. I kept her mine anyway. That's the whole part of this story that ever mattered. Everything else is just paper. Let me take you back to the night my mother said the sentence that would become the sentence. I was 22. I had been a mother for 3 days. It was a November Tuesday. 9:10. My parents' kitchen in Cedar Rapids. The counter light was on. The overhead was off. My mother was standing at the sink with her back to me, drying a coffee cup that was already dry. My father was at the kitchen table, newspaper folded, unread, hands on top of it. My older sister Sloane was in the living room on the couch, holding a bottle of formula she had bought at the pharmacy that afternoon. I want you to sit with that image because it matters later. My sister. On my parents' couch. Bottle in her hand. Waiting, my mother spoke to the coffee cup. "You owe your sister a baby." Not angry, not heated. She said it the way you say pass the sugar, like it was a debt the family ledger had been carrying, and today was the day we closed it. I said nothing. My father said nothing. From the living room, Sloane, still not looking away from a television that wasn't on, "Mom's right. You know she is. I want to tell you what I felt. The truth is I don't remember feeling anything. I remember my hands. The weight of a 3-day-old baby in my left arm. The weight of a diaper bag on my right shoulder. And my hands were steady. That was the tell. Inside my head a very calm voice said, "This is the moment your whole life splits in 2. My mother turned around. The ivory-handled hand mirror was in her other hand. My father had given it to her the Christmas I was 9. The initial J was engraved on the back. She checked her lipstick before she spoke to me. That was Judith. Every kitchen table, every funeral, every parent-teacher conference of my life. Lipstick first. Cruelty second. You can leave the baby and stay. You can take the baby and go. Those are your two options. Your sister has been ready for 11 months. You've had your fun. Now be a woman about it. I looked at my father. Dad, he looked at the newspaper. Sloane came into the kitchen. She set the bottle down on the table like a hammer. Don't drag him into it. This is a woman thing. She's not yours. She's a baby, Nora. She doesn't know who she came out of. She'll never know the difference. And I can give her every single thing you can't. My mother said the sentence again then. She said it the way people say the name of God when they want to end an argument. You owe your sister a baby. That is not a complicated thing. That is a family thing. Are you telling me you cannot do the one selfless thing your family has ever asked of you? No question mark at the end. Not really. It was a statement dressed as a challenge, dressed as a prayer. I adjusted the diaper bag on my shoulder. I tucked the blanket closer around my daughter's face. I looked at my father one more time. He did not look up. I walked out the kitchen door into the November driveway. I did not close the door behind me. If I had touched it, I would have slammed it. I did not want the last thing my daughter heard in that house to be a slam. The car seat was in the back. I had bought it myself with tips from the diner where I'd worked pregnant. I strapped her in. I drove 27 miles to my grandmother's house in Coldwater Bend. I did not cry. I had not yet figured out how to cry as a mother. Frances opened her door in a bathrobe at 11 at night. She did not ask what happened. She looked at the car seat. Then, she looked at me. Come inside, sweet girl. Come inside. That baby's cold. She took the car seat. She took the diaper bag. She took me by the elbow and steered me through her living room and into her kitchen, where the yellow bulb over the stove was on, and where a plate of cornbread was sitting on the counter, because Frances always had cornbread sitting on the counter. She set the car seat on the kitchen table. She looked at my daughter for a long time. Then, at me. Whose is she? Not a question about biology, a question about intent. Mine. Frances nodded once. She sat down at the table with her hand resting on the plastic edge of the car seat like it was a family heirloom. She said the sentence I would carry in my wallet for 11 years, written on the back of a grocery receipt in her handwriting, folded into 4. She stays here as long as you say she stays. This is your house now, too. I want you to hold on to that, because it's the hinge the whole story turns on. Frances did not ask me what my mother had said. She did not ask me why I had shown up at 11 at night with a newborn. She did not ask me if I was sure. She just made room. That November, and every November after it, my daughter Wren grew up in that yellow kitchen. Frances taught her to read at the same table Frances had taught me to read at. I worked nights at a diner for 4 years. Days at a title office for 2. Paid for community college on tips and small refunds. Graduated as a certified family court paralegal at 28. Got hired at the Coldwater Bend courthouse the same month. But I didn't know yet that my mother had already put a piece of paper in the mail 11 years ago. Sealed, on a top shelf in Frances's hall closet. I didn't know yet that Frances had been waiting for the right moment to open it. Before that Saturday came, though, there is one person I have to tell you about, because I would not have been standing at that doorway with a court binder in my hand without him. I met Cal at the courthouse. Family court judge for the 3rd District. 4 counties. He had transferred to Iowa 3 years earlier from Chicago, where he had sat on a family court bench in Cook County. 41. Quiet, reading glasses on a leather cord around his neck. A Chicago way of pausing before he answered any question. Wren met him before I did. She came to the courthouse to bring me a lunch I had forgotten. Cal was walking past the paralegal office and held the door for her. "Thank you, sir. My mom forgot her sandwich." "Your mom sounds like she's had a busy morning." "She has a busy every morning." Cal proposed a year after we started dating. He legally adopted Wren the spring she turned 9. The day the county issued her amended birth certificate with his name where the blank had been, Wren picked out his tie for the courtroom. Frances came in her Sunday coat. She wore lipstick that day. Frances almost never wore lipstick. Stay with me because the quiet part is where everything turns. 11 years passed. 11 Novembers. Not one card from my mother. Not one call from my father. Not one message from Sloan. I told myself that meant they had finally understood something. I was wrong. What it meant was that they had already decided to tell a story that did not need me in it. I would find out later that 3 things had converged in the 2 months before the letter came. The Iowa Adult Adoption Contact and Consent Registry had been amended in September to allow biological relatives to file for grandparent visitation petitions in cases where a private adoption instrument existed in the family record, and the amendment carried a filing deadline of January of the following year for any pre-existing instrument dated before 2015. My mother's attorney had told her about the deadline. Someone in the church deacon circle had also, at the September fundraiser, told my mother that Nora Whitfield had married a family court judge who had transferred in from Chicago, and that judge was the same one who had presided over Sloan's custody case in 2019. My mother had connected 2 dots. She had not connected them correctly. I would find that out on a Tuesday morning in October when a certified letter came to my house. The postal carrier rang the bell. Return receipt requested. Extra 50 cents to make sure I signed for it. I signed. I walked back inside and I put the letter on my kitchen counter and I stared at it for maybe 2 minutes before I opened it. I had recognized the handwriting on the envelope. There is only one person in the world whose handwriting can stop my hands for 2 whole minutes. I opened it standing at the counter. We would like to meet our granddaughter. Sunday the 20th, 3 o'clock. We are coming. No question mark. No RSVP line. No return address. A statement. A schedule. I read it 3 times. Then I did what a paralegal does. Opened my notebook, wrote the date, wrote the time, wrote the sentence out word for word so I would have it in my own handwriting when I needed to remember it in someone else's office. Put the letter in a plastic sleeve, filed it in the drawer where I keep the paper I might one day have to use. Cal came home at 6. He read the letter at the kitchen counter without picking it up. Hands in his pockets. He looked at me for a long moment. You get to decide what this Sunday looks like. Not them. That was Cal's one line. He didn't say more. He didn't need to. I called Frances that night. She did not sound surprised. That was the first thing I noticed. She did not say, "Oh no," or what. "How long do we have?" 2.5 weeks. Come over Saturday morning. There is something I have been keeping for you for a long time. I think this Sunday is the day it comes down off the shelf. I did not ask her what it was. Frances did not offer. If you've ever been the daughter who is called selfish for keeping something that was already yours, comment "kept her mine" below and hit subscribe. The next part of this story is the part I had never let myself say out loud, and I want you to hear it in order. The phone calls started the next day. Aunt Corinne first. My mother's younger sister. She has run the Whitfield Family Whisper campaign since I was in high school. She runs it the way some women run bake sales. Cheerfully, with a spreadsheet. I picked up on the 4th ring because Frances had raised me to pick up on the 4th ring. Nora, sweetheart, Your mother is beside herself. She has been praying about this for 11 years. Blood is blood, honey, you know that. Corinne, I'm at work. You are always at work, Nora, that's the problem. Your mother has been telling everyone for 11 years how much she misses her granddaughter, and you have not once thought about what it does to that woman to have a grandchild she's never held. Quiet, she's held her twice. Once at the hospital, once at the house. Corinne paused. Then, softer, sharper. Well, honey, that was different. I ended the call, opened my notebook, wrote the date, wrote the time, wrote Corinne's sentence out word for word. Then, I wrote the sentence I would use in reply if she called back. Which she would. I stopped asking myself daughter questions that day. I started asking paralegal questions. Who has the original document? Who has the witness? Who has the timestamp? Who has the paper? The next morning at the courthouse, my supervisor Diane walked into my office holding a cup of coffee she was not drinking. She closed the door behind her. Diane never closed the door unless she had been asked to. Nora, sit down. There's something I've been told to tell you, and I don't know if anyone else has. I've been carrying it a while. I sat down. Diane put the coffee on my desk. You know what people in this town say about your family. You've heard it. But have you actually heard the version they've been telling? Tell me. She told me. For 11 years, everyone in Coldwater Bend and Cedar Rapids who had ever met my mother had been told the same story. That I had run off with the baby. That I had abandoned my sister, who was a childless woman who had been ready to open her home. That I had cut off my grieving parents. That I had denied my family a grandchild for 11 years out of spite. The version they tell is the version where Sloane is the saint and you are the woman who broke her heart. That's what half this town believes about you. I have been meaning to say this to you for 2 years. I sat very still. My hand was on my desk, my hand was steady. Thank you for telling me. There's one more thing. The Cedar Rapids courthouse called me last month. Records request. From your mother's attorney. She's not filing anything. She's fishing. But she's fishing for something specific. She wants to know if there is a filed relinquishment on record for your daughter from 2015. There isn't. I know. Do they know there isn't? No. Not yet. I want you to sit with that. Because it matters later. My mother, 11 years after the fact, was checking the records to see if a piece of paper existed that would let her walk onto my porch and take a granddaughter home. She thought it might exist because she had signed it. She did not know it had been sitting sealed on my grandmother's shelf for 11 years. The last person she had trusted it to was the person who had never opened it. I drove to Frances's house on Saturday morning at 10. Frances met me at the door in her housecoat. Her hair was in the loose braid she wore when she was not going anywhere. She held the door open. She looked at me the way she had looked at me on that November night 11 years ago. Come in, sweet girl. It's on the kitchen table. I stepped inside. On my grandmother's kitchen table was a shoebox. On top of the shoebox was an envelope, my mother's handwriting on the front. The shoebox was old. Brown cardboard. Faded blue lid. A drugstore price sticker still on the corner from 1978. Frances had kept it on the top shelf of her hall closet for 11 years. The envelope on top had my mother's handwriting on it. For Frances, hold please, will explain. The date on the corner was October 27, 2014, 3 weeks before Wren was born. I sat down at Frances's kitchen table. You never opened it. Frances took the seat across from me. She poured coffee for both of us without asking. I opened the envelope, not the paper inside. I saw the first page and I knew what it was and I put it back. Why didn't you tell me? She stirred her coffee. Slow circles. The spoon clicked against the ceramic. Because if I had told you at 22, sweet girl, you would have gone to war. You didn't have the paper for a war then. You had a baby and a diaper bag and no lawyer. You would have driven straight back to Cedar Rapids and put that felony in your mother's face on a Tuesday night in November, and she would have burned it in the sink before you got to a courtroom, and you would have had nothing left but the story. I was not going to let you spend the next decade telling a story you couldn't prove. I was going to hand you the paper the day you had the standing and the counsel and the child grown enough to sit next to you on a porch. That day came this Saturday. I have been waiting a long time for you to ask. I lifted the envelope, slid the papers out. The top sheet was a State of Iowa voluntary relinquishment of parental rights form, blank in the child's name field, because Wren had not been born yet. But it was signed. On the parent signature line was my name, written in my mother's handwriting, in a copy of my hand that she had practiced. On the notary line was a stamp from a woman named Deborah Ashford. I knew that name. Deborah Ashford ran a mobile notary practice out of a strip mall in Marion, Iowa. She advertised herself as a family services specialist. She notarized quiet documents for families that did not want to sit in a law office. She had signed her name to 211 documents between 2014 and 2016 that she had not witnessed being signed. The Iowa Secretary of State's office suspended her commission in April of 2016 after a bank flagged one of her notarized signatures on a mortgage refinance. She had taken $200 a document from my mother for the relinquishment. I would find that out from her plea filing 3 months after Sunday. She had been sued civilly by 4 other families. She had signed my daughter over to my sister for $180 and a container of homemade jam my mother had brought to her office. My mother had taken the receipt. Underneath the relinquishment was a second document. A private adoption placement request. Placing party, Nora Whitfield. Receiving party, Sloan Whitfield. Attached to the second document were 3 receipts: a stroller, a crib, a car seat. All bought by my sister in the last week of October 2014, 3 weeks before I gave birth. All shipped to my parents' house. I want you to sit with that because it matters. My mother had signed my name to a felony. My sister had gone shopping. Frances watched my face. There's one more thing under there. Underneath the receipts was a manila envelope, sealed, thicker than the rest. I opened it with a butter knife from Frances's drawer. Inside was an Illinois Circuit Court order. Dated April 2019. Case number stamped at the top. In the matter of the child E.W., custody terminated from Sloan Whitfield due to substantiated findings of neglect and unsafe home environment. Placement transferred to state care pending relative review. The signature at the bottom of the order was Judge Calvin Reyes. My husband's signature. Cal. My Cal. I sat with that piece of paper in my hand for a very long time. Frances did not speak. She just watched me. Coffee cooling between us. Finally, Frances, where did you get this? Your father brought it to me. 6 months after it happened. He didn't say anything. He put it on this table and he left. He knew. He knew what he could carry, sweet girl. That's the most I ever got out of him. He also knew he couldn't put a court order like that on his own kitchen table because if Judith had found it, it would have been in the burn barrel behind the garage by nightfall. He brought it to me because I am his mother, and because my kitchen was the one safe kitchen in his life he still knew how to walk into. He did not ask me to do anything with it. He asked me to hold it. I held it. I called Cal from Frances's driveway. I asked him one question. Reyes 2019. Illinois, case ending in 4471. The line was quiet for a full breath. Then, in the Chicago voice, I was going to tell you tonight. I was waiting for the shoebox. You knew about the shoebox. Frances called me 3 weeks ago. When the letter came, she told me what she had. She asked me if the mother in that case was your sister. I told her yes. She said she was going to hand it to you Saturday and she wanted me ready. I've been ready. I stood in Frances's driveway with a court order in my hand. My husband had spent 3 weeks holding a professional secret to protect a personal one. Cal, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because your grandmother said you needed to be the one who opened the box, not me. She said, and I'm quoting her, "The day Nora asks for the paper is the day Nora becomes the paper." I did what she asked me to do. I got in my car. I drove home. I want you to sit with this, because it matters later. My grandmother had orchestrated an 11-year quiet. My husband had held a courtroom in his mouth for 3 weeks. My father had walked a felony to Frances's kitchen table 6 months after it happened and had never mentioned it again. 3 people had been carrying this for me. I did not know until Saturday morning at 10:10. If you know what it means to have people who protect you without asking your permission, comment "kept her mind" below and hit subscribe. Because Sunday came, and I want you to see what happened on that porch. I want you to sit with what my grandmother did for me for a moment, because I know some of you have been the child who was told at 20 that you were on your own and had to figure it out yourself. Some of you know what it is to have somebody in your life who chose you without a receipt. She did not carry me. She just made room. I want you to tell me in the comments whether you have had a Frances in your life. I read every comment. Then, hit subscribe, because the story I am about to tell you is the story I want to tell in front of witnesses, and I want you to be one of them. I spent Saturday afternoon at the courthouse. My badge got me in on a weekend. I made copies. I certified copies. I filed a records request on my own case that had been dormant for 11 years. I logged into the paralegal system and pulled the disputed instrument objection template I had filed 73 times for strangers. Case 74 was mine. I filled in my own name. I put it all in the dove gray fabric court binder Cal had given me our first Christmas. I labeled the tabs. I closed the binder. I drove home. Ren was on the porch doing homework when I pulled in. "Mom," Grandma Frances called. "She's coming over tomorrow. Is something happening?" I sat down next to her on the swing. "Some people are coming to the house tomorrow. My parents. And my sister. It's the first time in 11 years." She thought about this. Ren thinks about things. She does not react. She thinks. "Are they the ones who told you to give me away?" I looked at her, my 11-year-old with a pencil behind her ear. "Yes, do I have to meet them?" "Only if you want to." She thought for another minute. "I want to stand next to you when you open the door. I don't have to talk. I just want to be there." That was Ren's one line. She said it and then went back to her homework. I set the binder on the side table next to the porch swing. I folded a blue dish towel over the top of it. Cal came home. Frances arrived at 2 on Sunday with a bundt cake she had made because Frances always brought a bundt cake to a war. If you have been waiting your whole life for the door to open on the person who told you you were the problem, the next part is the part you came for. Hit subscribe so this story lands with you in the room. The doorbell rang at 3:03. I opened the door 6 inches. My mother's smile did not quite reach her eyes. Aunt Corinne stood on the second step. My father was 1 step behind them. My sister Sloane was at the end of the walkway, wearing a coat 2 sizes too warm for October and holding a stuffed animal in cellophane. "We're just here to meet our granddaughter." The pie dish. The gift bag. The stuffed animal. The performance. I opened the door the rest of the way. Wren was standing to my left, one hand on the doorframe. Cal was standing to my right, still holding a coffee cup. Frances was on the porch swing in her Sunday coat, one hand resting on the side table, one hand resting on the dove gray binder. My mother's eyes moved across the four of us. They landed on Cal. She did not know him. She had not been at the wedding. She had not been at the adoption. She had never seen his face. She kept smiling, but her mouth moved a little at the corner. "You must be Nora's husband. I'm Judith. This is her father, Doug. This is my sister, Corinne. And this," gesturing back at the walkway, "is Nora's sister, Sloane. Sloane has been waiting a very long time to meet her niece." Cal did not say anything. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned his head slightly toward the porch swing. Frances stood up. "Judith, sit down. All four of you. The rocking chairs and the top step will do." Frances had not raised her voice to my mother since 1987. My mother sat down. My father sat down. Corinne sat down. Sloane stayed at the end of the walkway, holding the stuffed animal like it had become heavier. Wren was still holding the doorframe. I put my hand over hers. My mother took the ivory mirror out of her purse, checked her lipstick, snapped it shut. "Nora, I know this is uncomfortable, but we are here because it is time. We have all lost 11 years we cannot get back. Your father and I are not young anymore, and your sister has grieved for 11 years, and it is time for this family to heal. If you cannot forgive us for whatever it is you think we did, at least think of your daughter. She deserves to know her grandparents. She deserves to know her aunt. Blood is blood, Nora. That never changes. And whatever your husband here has told you about family, blood does not." Cal did not move. Aunt Corinne murmured, "Blood is blood, honey. That's all we're saying." I lifted the dish towel off the binder, set it on the porch swing, opened the binder. "Judith, before you finish, I want to give you 4 documents, and I want you to look at them in the order I hand them to you." She kept smiling, but her smile had lost the top half of itself. "Nora, this is not necessary. We came here in good faith." That's the first one. I set page 1 on the side table. Wren's original birth certificate. Nora Whitfield in the mother field. Father blank. That is my daughter's birth certificate. My name is on it. No one else's name has ever been on it in the biological line, confirming, for the record, that 11 years ago, she was mine to keep. My mother did not touch the paper. That's document 2. I set the second page down. The amended birth certificate. That is her amended birth certificate. My husband's name is on the father line. He legally adopted her 3 years ago. The adoption was finalized in the 3rd District Family Court. That's public record. He is her legal father, and he has been for 3 years. His name is Calvin Reyes Whitfield. Confirming, for the record, that any question of who her father is has already been answered by a judge. My father was staring at the porch boards. Document 3. I set the 3rd page down. The forged relinquishment. This is a voluntary relinquishment of parental rights form, dated October 27, 2014, 3 weeks before my daughter was born. The parent signature at the bottom is signed Nora Whitfield. In my handwriting. Except that on October 27, 2014, I was in Cedar Rapids at a diner working the closing shift, and I did not sign anything. This document was signed by you, Judith, in imitation of my signature. And it was notarized by Deborah Ashford, whose notary license was suspended in 2016 for signing documents she had not witnessed. That means, Judith, that you committed a Class D felony under Iowa Code 715A 3 weeks before my daughter was born, and my grandmother has had the original in her closet for 11 years. The mirror slipped in my mother's hand. She caught it. Barely, Sloane, at the end of the walk, took one step forward. Nora, whatever that is, that's not what it looks like. I did not look at her. Document 4. I set the 4th page down. The Illinois custody order. I let it sit there. I did not name it yet. I let the silence do it. Sloane took another step forward. Her face had turned the color of the cellophane in her hands. Nora, please, that is an order from the Cook County, Illinois Circuit Court, dated April 2019. It terminates your parental rights to your daughter Emmy Whitfield, born September 2018. Custody was transferred to state care due to substantiated neglect. The judge who signed the order is standing on my porch. You are looking at him right now. And Corinne made a small noise, not a word. Just the noise a person makes when the story they've been telling for years turns around and looks at them. My mother said, "That's a lie." Very quiet. Cal spoke for the first time. He did not raise his voice. He sounded like he sounded from the bench. "Ma'am, the case number is 2019 CH 1178. The order was issued April 11. I signed it. I remember it. If you would like to verify, the clerk of court's office in Chicago is open Monday morning at 8. Sloane sat down on my porch step. She did not sit down. Her legs gave out and she landed there. The stuffed animal fell in the flower bed. My father spoke. One sentence, 11 years late. "Judith, I told you not to sign it." My mother whipped her head toward him. "Doug, I told you not to sign it. I told you it wasn't your name to sign. And I told you when we heard about Sloane in 2019 that we had raised the wrong daughter to be the mother and the wrong daughter to be the daughter. I have been carrying that around for 6 years. I put a copy of that order on my mother's kitchen table because I couldn't put it on yours." He did not look at me when he said it. He looked at his hands. Aunt Corinne stood up. "Judith, I am going home. I have been telling everyone the wrong story for 11 years. Blood is blood. But blood is also what actually happened." She walked down the porch steps and past Sloane, still on the step, and got in her car without looking back. My mother's mouth opened. She closed it. She opened it again. She was a woman drowning in a story she had told for 11 years, and her only response was to search her purse for the mirror. Her hand was shaking too badly. She dropped it on the porch boards. It cracked once. The ivory handle stayed in one piece. The glass came out in 3. She did not pick it up. Wren was still holding my hand. She looked at my mother. My mother looked back at her. "Finally," Wren said, very softly, the one sentence she had planned. "You never asked me my name." My mother could not answer that. "I want to tell you what it was like to be 22 years old, holding a 3-day-old baby in a hospital lobby, and to have the woman who taught me how to tie my shoes tell me I was selfish for keeping her. I want to tell you because I never got to say it out loud to anyone but Frances, and Frances already knew. My mother made me choose between her house and my daughter, and she thought the choice would be hard. It wasn't. It was the easiest thing I have ever done in my life. I kept her mine that night in a Cedar Rapids kitchen, and I kept her mine at 11 in a diner parking lot, and I kept her mine at 19 when a title office secretary asked me why I hadn't put her father on her school forms, and I kept her mine on my porch this Sunday afternoon, while a woman who had never asked my daughter her name told me it was time for this family to heal. She is not standing on my porch, she is standing in my doorway. And I am the door. I closed the binder. "Judith, You may leave my porch. I don't want to see you again unless you are being served. Frances walked forward. She picked up the broken mirror. She did not hand it back. She kept it in her palm. Judith, you raised a good son somewhere. He kept the paper. That's the only good thing I have to say to you today. Go home. My father was already standing. He put his hand under my mother's elbow. He did not look at me. He walked her down the porch steps. He walked her past Sloane, still on the third step, and Sloane did not get up. He walked her to the car. He got behind the wheel. He drove her away. Sloane sat on my porch step for another 2 minutes. She did not look up. She stood up finally. She walked past the stuffed animal in the flower bed. She got in her own car and she drove after them. Frances closed the binder. She put the pieces of the mirror in her coat pocket. She said one sentence. Coffee's still hot inside. We went in. The coffee was still hot. Frances poured 3 cups. Wren sat next to Cal on the couch. Nobody said anything for a while, because nobody needed to. That was the last quiet hour of the story that had defined my whole life. What came after belonged to a different story, and that is the one I want to tell you now. Here's what happened after. The forgery got filed. My paralegal supervisor Diane walked the case up to the county attorney the following Tuesday. Class D felony charge. Fraudulent notarial acts. Second count. My mother pleaded to a suspended sentence and a permanent record. She lost her position on the church deacon board because Iowa churches do not keep felons on deacon boards. She kept her house. She lost her town. Aunt Corinne stopped attending Sunday service at the church, where she had run the Whisper campaign for 11 years. She sent me one letter. 2 paragraphs. It said, I am sorry for the story I told. I told it because your mother told me to and I never checked. I don't expect you to answer this. I just wanted you to have it in your drawer. I put it in the drawer. She was right that I did not answer it. Sloane went to court in Chicago 4 months later. Emmy was 7 by then. The state had placed her with a foster family who had asked to adopt. Sloane consented. She had already lost the case in 2019. She lost the appeal now, and this time she signed the paper herself. She wrote me 1 email. 3 sentences. Emmy is with a good family. I don't get to be her mother. I hope you and Wren are well. I did not answer. Cal read it over my shoulder and said, that one you don't owe a reply. I filed it. My father wrote me a letter 6 months later. On a piece of yellow legal paper. In pencil, it said, I should have said it out loud in 1993, and I should have said it out loud in 2014, and I said it out loud in 2025, and I know that doesn't count. I would like to know my granddaughter. If you decide no, I understand. If you decide yes, I will come alone. I wrote back. 1 sentence. Come alone. Coffee at Frances's, 3 o'clock, first Sunday of December. He came. He brought a book of bird calls, which was a strange gift, but Wren has kept it. Frances poured him coffee and asked him nothing about my mother. He came the first Sunday of every month for the next year. Frances passed the following August. She was 80. She died in her own bed with the yellow bulb on in the kitchen and a bundt cake on the counter. She left me the shoebox with the folded receipt still inside. She left Wren the ivory mirror, wrapped in tissue paper, glass gone, handle only. Wren keeps it on her desk. She has never asked me who it belonged to. She knows. The porch light is on every night now. That was not there 11 years ago. I turn it on when I get home from the courthouse. Cal turns it off when he goes to bed. Wren is 13 now. She wants to be a family court paralegal. I did not encourage this. I did not have to. That's the whole story. I want to say one thing before I go. For 11 years, I told myself the door I closed on my mother's kitchen was the door that mattered. The door I slammed the day I walked out with a car seat in November. The one where the last thing I heard was silence. I was wrong. The door that mattered was the one I opened. 6 inches at first, then all the way. The one where my daughter stood next to me, and my grandmother sat behind me, and my husband stood beside me, and I looked at my mother, and I did not owe her a single thing. The door isn't the one they slammed on you. It's the one you decide to open or not, on the day they come back for something they were never entitled to have. The door was mine to open. That's the only part of this story that ever mattered. If you have a door in your own life you have been thinking about, comment "kept her mine" below. Share this with the one person who would understand. Subscribe to Calm Life Stories, because there's another story coming next week, and I want you to be here when it lands. The porch light is on. That's the whole answer.